No shortage of the former president in the spotlight, but there is one person who has been mostly missing from his side in public: former First Lady Melania Trump.
From her time in the White House to her recent actions, Melania Trump has sent shockwaves through the Christian community. But what's the terrifying truth behind her cryptic messages and hidden agendas? Stay tuned as we uncover the unsettling reality behind Melania Trump's warning and why every Christian needs to listen carefully. In America, there's a big talk about a shift happening, and it's not just about politics, it's about faith, something that's super important to many people. You might remember Donald Trump, the former president, who promised to bring God's light to America during his campaign. Alongside him was Melania Trump, his wife, who hasn't been in the spotlight as much as him. But recently, people have started wondering about her role and her faith. Melania has always been a bit mysterious. Even though she's been seen in public for years, not much is known about her beliefs. But during holidays, like Christmas, people notice her extravagant decorations and wonder about her religious views. Surprisingly, Melania is Catholic, which caught many by surprise. This became clear when she met the Pope and presented him with a rosary to bless, a big deal for Catholics. Even though Melania and Donald had a wedding in an Episcopal church, Melania's faith has a strong Catholic influence. One big clue was when she walked down the aisle carrying a rosary instead of a bouquet. This showed how important her faith is to her. Melania's faith became more visible during her time as the First Lady when she spoke publicly and started her speech with the Lord's Prayer. This showed everyone how much prayer means to her and highlighted her personal beliefs. Despite her quiet nature, Melania has supported her husband, Donald Trump, but she's always preferred to stay out of the public eye. After leaving the White House, she's kept a low profile, making only one public appearance. Even on social media, she's careful not to share too much. She's been noticeably absent from her husband's political events, showing that she's not really into politics. But surprisingly, Melania recently showed support for Donald Trump's potential 2024 re-election campaign, even though she previously said she didn't want to be part of another White House experience. This shows a change in her attitude towards politics. When Melania Trump visited the Vatican to meet the Pope, she wore a black lace veil called a mantilla, as is the custom for women meeting the Pope. This was seen as a sign of respect and adherence to Vatican protocol. Melania is Catholic, so meeting the Pope was significant for her. However, when Melania visited Saudi Arabia, she didn't wear a head covering, called a hijab, because it wasn't required by the Saudi government. She dressed modestly, as is customary for high-level female visitors to Saudi Arabia, but she didn't cover her head. In Israel, Melania and Donald Trump visited the Western Wall, a holy site for Jews. Donald wore a yarmulke, a skull cap, which is customary for men visiting the wall. Melania didn't wear a head covering, but Ivanka Trump, Donald's daughter, did wear one out of respect for the Orthodox Jewish tradition. The differences in Melania's attire in these different countries reflect the different customs and protocols of each place. At the Vatican, she followed the tradition of wearing a mantilla, while in Saudi Arabia, she dressed modestly but didn't cover her head because it wasn't required. In Israel, she didn't wear a head covering at the Western Wall, but her daughter-in-law Ivanka did, following Orthodox Jewish tradition. In a recent Fox News interview, Melania Trump expressed her support for her husband, Donald Trump, in his potential run for the presidency in 2024. This endorsement, despite Melania's previous distance from politics, shows a united front between them. Melania acknowledges Donald's influence on the Republican Party and stands behind him, even though she had reservations about being actively involved in politics before. Melania's unexpected endorsement brings up questions about her role in the upcoming campaign. It challenges the idea that she's not interested in politics and suggests she might take a more active role. Melania has also talked about her commitment to focusing on children's well-being if Donald becomes president again in 2024. This aligns with her past work supporting children's causes. In a video shared on Truth Social for Donald Trump's 2024 campaign, he portrayed himself as a leader chosen by God to guide America through its challenges. The video showed him signing executive orders, meeting with world leaders, and walking with Melania onto Air Force One. This narrative suggests that Trump's supporters see him as a chosen leader, akin to historical figures like Cyrus. Some believe America, as a Christian nation, is meant to return to its Christian roots, and they support Trump as a defender of Christian values. Even though Trump's lifestyle may not align with traditional religious norms, many conservative Christians support him because of his policies and shared values. Some also share his nostalgia for a time when white Christians had more influence in the country. The video's framing reinforces the idea that believers may prioritize political leaders who can uphold Christian principles, even if they don't fit the traditional mold of religious devotion. In 2016, a self-proclaimed prophet named Lance Whannell had a vision identifying the next president as a modern-day Cyrus, further emphasizing the idea of Trump being chosen by God to lead the nation. This shows how religious beliefs can influence political choices, even if it means supporting a candidate with a non-traditional lifestyle. Some people believe Donald Trump was chosen by God, even though he's not from an evangelical background. They think he's here to bring back conservative Christianity, which they feel has been pushed aside in society. According to Matthew Taylor of the Institute for Islamic, Christian, and Jewish Studies, these believers see Trump as a special leader sent by God to restore what they think is the right way of living. They believe there's a spiritual battle going on, with demons controlling different parts of society, like politics, education, and media. They think that only certain leaders, called apostles and prophets, have the power to fight against these demons and make things right again. They want to change how churches are run and have these dynamic leaders take charge instead of the usual leaders. This way of thinking is controversial in mainstream Christianity, but it's gaining popularity, especially in churches that aren't tied to a specific denomination. These churches, which are part of what's called the apostolic movement, are growing in the United States. A survey in 2023 showed that many Americans believe in modern-day prophets and prophecies, which matches what the apostolic movement teaches. Leaders in the apostolic movement are very involved in politics, often supporting Republican candidates like Trump. They see him as central to their goals and even formed a special group during his presidency to protect him from what they saw as spiritual threats. Many people even believed God wanted Trump to be president again in 2020. However, not all Christian leaders are happy with Trump. Some are worried about his views on issues like abortion and think he doesn't know enough about religion. In the 2024 election, there's a lot of competition to win over politically active white evangelical voters. Some of Trump's rivals hope to sway these voters by pointing out their concerns about him and presenting themselves as more aligned with evangelical values. Despite these concerns, Trump is seen by many as a devout evangelical and supports causes important to the Christian right, like banning abortion nationwide. Evangelical Christians, known for their conservative beliefs, have been a significant force in American politics. They often focus on issues like opposition to abortion, support for traditional marriage, and religious freedom. Their influence has been particularly strong within the Republican Party, where they make up a substantial portion of the voter base. Throughout his presidency, Trump maintained a close relationship with evangelical leaders and voters. He appointed conservative judges, advocated for religious liberties, and took a strong stance against abortion. These actions endeared him to many evangelicals, who saw him as a champion for their values, despite his personal life not necessarily aligning with traditional Christian teachings. Religion has long played a role in American elections, with candidates often seeking support from religious groups. In recent years, the alignment between conservative Christianity and the Republican Party has become more pronounced. leading to a significant portion of white evangelical voters consistently supporting Republican candidates. Despite widespread support for Trump among white evangelicals, there have been voices of dissent within the community. Some evangelical leaders have raised concerns about Trump's character, behavior, and policies, particularly regarding issues like immigration and racial justice. These leaders argue that true Christian values should prioritize compassion, justice, and care for the marginalized. While white evangelical Christians have historically held significant influence, the religious landscape of America is diverse. There are growing populations of Catholics, Protestants from various denominations, as well as non-Christian faiths such as Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, and Hinduism. This diversity brings different perspectives and priorities to the political arena. The intersection of faith and public policy remains a contentious issue in American society. Debates over issues like abortion, LGBTQ+ rights, healthcare, and immigration often have strong religious undertones, with different religious groups advocating for their beliefs to be reflected in legislation and governance. In recent years, there has been a trend of declining religious affiliation among younger generations in the United States. This trend has raised questions about the future role of religion in American politics and society, as well as potential shifts in voting patterns and policy priorities. The connection between Donald Trump and conservative evangelical Christians goes deep, beyond just numbers. They appreciate Trump's dedication to fulfilling promises, especially when it comes to appointing Supreme Court justices who might overturn the Roe v. Wade decision on abortion. His actions, like recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and moving the U.S. embassy there, have made a big impression on conservative evangelicals. They see these moves as aligning with their religious and geopolitical views. Trump's personal beliefs, which include fighting for Christian causes, have earned him strong loyalty from conservative evangelicals. Despite past criticisms, they value his actions over his words. His role in potentially overturning Roe v. Wade is particularly important to them and has solidified his standing among this group. Interviews with pastors in Iowa show a shift in perception towards Trump. Some who were critical of him during the 2016 campaign now see him as the most pro-life president the U.S. has ever had. This change reflects how Trump's actions have influenced conservative evangelicals' views of him. However, there's a concerning trend among some conservative evangelicals towards Christian nationalism. This ideology sees Trump as an essential figure in God's plan to redeem the world. Events like the Real Awaken America tour, organized by figures like Michael Flynn, promote this view and draw support from those who believe in far-right conspiracy theories. This movement blends together ideas of God, patriotism, and politics, and has gained ground within the Republican Party. Trump's actions on issues like abortion and foreign policy have won him support among conservative evangelicals. However, there's also a worrying trend towards Christian nationalism, where Trump is seen as a divine figure essential to God's plan for the world. The influence of a movement closely tied to Donald Trump is growing stronger. They see America as under attack and view Trump as its defender against threats to American values. This group, known for its militant stance, is planning events in swing states to rally support for Trump's 2024 comeback bid. Some organizations like Pastors for Trump are just the visible part of a larger Christian nationalist movement. They see Trump almost as a religious figure, equating him with Jesus and blending Christianity with the MAGA cause. While this fusion of cultural conservatism with religious fervor existed before Trump, he has come to embody it. For many devout Christians, loyalty to Trump goes beyond politics. It's almost like religious devotion. They embrace Trump's rhetoric, even when it's marked by hatred and resentment, seeing it as part of their Christian identity. This troubling trend shows how political ideology can overshadow religious principles among some Christians. Trump's influence in the realm of Christian nationalism is undeniable. He's revered by militant conservatives, regardless of whether they attend church or not. His disruptive impact blurs the lines between civic and religious norms, sometimes even inciting violence in defense of perceived values. In non-denominational faith communities, where spiritual warfare against demonic forces is prioritized, there's a risk of equating Jesus with Trump. If Trump secures another term with the support of conservative Christians, it will require a critical examination of what professed believers in Jesus truly stand for. As Trump emerges as the frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination, Americans must consider the implications. Throughout his career, Trump has displayed traits that make him unsuitable for high office. He's often prioritized his ego over the country's interests and shown a disregard for the rule of law and democratic norms. In his bid for power, Trump continues to fan the flames of violence, exploit fear and hatred, and undermine democratic institutions. This election presents a choice between preserving America's democratic values or electing a leader who disregards the law and constitutional safeguards. Voters must weigh these factors carefully when deciding the future of the nation. Donald Trump uses social media a lot, like Twitter, to talk directly to his supporters. He has a big following on these platforms, and what he says can really influence what people think. Sometimes he talks about things that are controversial or not true, and this can make people feel strongly one way or another. Social media algorithms, which are like computer programs that decide what shows up on your feed, can also make things worse by spreading things that are divisive or even conspiracy theories. This makes people more divided and makes it harder to have calm discussions about important issues. A lot of conservative voters really like Trump's economic policies. He's done things like cutting taxes and getting rid of regulations, which they think helps businesses grow and creates more jobs. They believe in free market capitalism, which means they think businesses should be able to operate with little government interference. They also like that Trump focuses on making the economy stronger, which they think is good for everyone. Trump's way of dealing with other countries, called foreign policy, is all about putting America first. This means he cares most about what's best for the United States, even if it means not working as closely with other countries. He's taken a tough stance on things like trade deals, immigration, and keeping the country safe. Some people like this because they think it makes America stronger and more independent. Many people who support Trump are regular folks who feel like the people in charge, like politicians and big companies, don't care about them. They like that Trump talks about taking power away from these elites and shaking things up in Washington. He promises to get rid of corruption and make the government work for regular people again. This idea really appeals to folks who feel left out or ignored by politicians. Trump talks a lot about protecting American culture and values. This means things like respecting the flag and the national anthem and being tough on things like immigration and border security. He believes that these things are really important to what it means to be American, and many of his supporters agree. One of Trump's biggest strengths is how he makes people feel like he's protecting them from danger. He talks about threats, whether they're real or not, and says he's the only one who can keep people safe. This makes his supporters feel like he's on their side, fighting for them against the bad guys. There are also a lot of media outlets that support Trump and his ideas. They help spread his message and make people believe in what he says. These outlets often have a conservative view and agree with Trump on many things. They can sometimes make people more divided because they only show one side of the story. Melania Trump's warning is serious and deserves attention. She's saying that if her husband Donald Trump gets re-elected, it could have scary consequences, especially for Christians. When Trump first ran for president in 2016, some people hoped he would do what they wanted without causing too much harm. But now, it's clear what Trump wants to do and who he'll surround himself with if he wins again. During his time as president, Trump caused a lot of problems. He made America more divided and polarized. He said and did things that were disrespectful and hurtful, even at the highest levels of government. He didn't always follow the rules, and he didn't always lead with good morals. Despite these problems, America survived Trump's presidency for a few reasons. First, Trump didn't always have a clear plan, and sometimes things were chaotic. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content.